but ultimately you've got to be happy with what you're putting out there.
Right.
And if you're happy with what you're putting out there, then you should keep doing it, because you should be doing it for you. You shouldn't necessarily be doing it just because, oh, I'm not getting as well known as I wish, or I'm not getting the respect I wish, or I'm not getting the money that I wish. Like, of course, you've got to earn you've got to earn enough to live, of course.
Sure.
But like, at some point, there are outlets these days more than there ever have been for creative output.
Hello, today's interview is with Ben Winston. Ben has won 10 Emmy Awards. He's been nominated for 17. He's executive producer of The Late Late Show with James Corden, co-creator of Carpool Karaoke. He directed the Friends reunion this year, executive producer of the Grammys. Ben's quite incredible. He's on this career trajectory, which is unique, top of his game. He's also a good friend. This is the interview with Ben Winston.
Hi Marcus, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you. Yeah, not bad.
Lovely to see you. Where are you at the moment?
I am in North London. I'm in my house in North London.
Nice.
So, yeah, it is. It's nice to be back. Where about you?
I'm in Bushy.
In front of a very impressive bookshelf.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everything from Gemara's, Mishnahs to you with beautifully long hair.
Well spotted. Excellently observed. And Kosher Sutras as well. You know.
Perfect.
We leave
what else?
That's all good. Thanks for making the time. I really appreciate it, Ben. I can't imagine how busy.
Oh, my pleasure.
Ben, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you. I want to ask you now. Thank you. You've had this incredible year, what looks like an amazing year, producing the Grammys, the Friends reunion, the Late Late Show. I really enjoyed your piece in the Sunday Times the other week. Felt very proud reading that. That was lovely. Enjoyed watching the Shawn Mendes doc and the first couple of episodes of Happy Together. Were you directing those? Or were you producing those?
No, Happy Together I didn't direct. I produced that. Yeah, no, we had much better directors than I would be for that.
How modest, but I really liked it. It was funny. And also your back catalogue, This Is Us. I finally saw that. I remember when you were posting all those pictures on Instagram, but that was amazing. Looked like a lot of fun. So you've had this great year. What would you say to the people, the students who were planning to go to drama school or dance school or music school, but their training ambitions were thrown off by COVID and maybe still somewhat in a spin?
Well, it's a really difficult thing to answer in a way, because this year has decimated so many people's hopes and dreams and whatever else. I mean, for me, it was, obviously it was set to be a big year. I knew at the beginning of the year I was doing my first ever Grammys, and I was doing the Friends reunion, which obviously both of those I agreed to do before COVID hit. And when it happened, I was incredibly sort of worried about how I would be almost forced to do these shows under circumstances that filled me with fear. How do you do the Grammys without an audience? How do you do the Friends reunion when you can't have people next to each other? How all these questions and worries were coming in. And I got lucky in a way, because I was able to delay both of those. The Grammys we were able to push by a couple of months. Friends reunion we pushed by 15 months. And so that time brought me sort of almost like thinking time in a way. And I started trying to work out not what we couldn't do, but what we could do. And I tried to take what was a huge negative into trying to see the positive. So, well, if I look at the Grammys, I went, well, the Grammys is always in front of 13,000 people. It's always really noisy. It's very difficult to get intimacy with your audience. It's almost like a sausage factory of like one artist comes on, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. And actually, if you just stop thinking, what can't you do? And you start thinking, what can you do? Then you're like, well, maybe I could have all the performances out together. Maybe I could do like a Jules Holland thing without a crowd, where Billie Eilish is watching Harry Styles and Taylor Swift is watching Post Malone, and it's a really intimate thing. And then I was like, well, also outdoors could be really beautiful with a shot of LA, rather than doing the award show in a an arena where no one's listening to the speeches. Actually, you could do them outdoors and build like a gorgeous marquee without any walls. And that's how I tried to approach things. Same with the Friends reunion, really. It was like originally it was supposed to be, you know, the chat that they were going to do with that host was going to be in Central Perk. And then it was actually David Schwimmer who said, well, would you consider doing it outside? And then I went for a walk on the Warner Brothers lot and found that fountain. And I sat at the fountain and looked at it. And I was like, well, hold on a second. And it's really where that is quite barren. Although we made it look quite nice. It's just like random grassy patch with sort of odd buildings.
It looked beautifully done. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, well, hold on. We could bring in sort of stadium seating in front of them and to the sides, and we could have people on bean bags. And if they're spread out, it wouldn't necessarily need to look like they're social distancing, because you know, I don't want people to look at it and go, oh, that's a COVID show. I want them to just look at it and go, well, that's really wonderful. So I guess for me, it's like I was able to turn things and go, well, actually, if we do it outdoors for the French Union, it looks bigger and more ambitious. But I think that's inconsiderate in a way to answer your question with those sorts of things, because to talk to a student who's lost their dreams of going to a drama school, or to talk to a young person who's lost their dream of being able to go to a dance school, it's a very hard thing for me to say, well, you know, look at what you can do, because there might not be options there. But I think that one thing I heard Alan de Botton say, who's a philosopher who I've listened to quite a lot during the pandemic, is he said that this is the first time in our lives that we've had a free pass being able to fail. We've had a free pass, and that there's no pressure on anybody. There's no pressure on anybody for these 2 years. It's actually fine. It's like, although there's disappointment, everybody is in the same boat, and you think you're on your own, but every single person has missed out on that opportunity that they wanted to do, that funeral they should have been at, that wedding they should have had, that bar mitzvah that they wish they'd been able to stage or be to. And so I think that being all in it together is something, and means that the pressure is off for anybody. And I think as we're coming out of this, which it feels like we might be, I think there'll be new opportunities that those people who are full of disappointment can find and seek. And no one will ever judge them on what happened these last 2 years in a society that is full of going, well, where are you going? What are you doing? How successful are you? Yeah. And actually that has gone away from society in a positive way, I think.
Thank you. And it's very interesting mentioning Alan de Botton and the 2 years and the free pass to fail. What about the people who feel they may have failed? And let's say someone who's later on in the career, or people who've had marginal success, medium success, but haven't made it, quote unquote. Do you think there's a time for, say, the older artists to say, right, okay, I'm calling it quits, let's say leaving LA or leaving New York? Like, how far, like, at what point does someone carry on to?
Hold on, what's the question? The question is, when do you leave the stage?
When do you leave the business? When does the artist leave a business? If someone hasn't got the commercial success, you know, they may have worked, it might be a band who's toured, or personally, you know, like an actor who's worked, you know, who's moved around, but sort of whoever it happens to be, whichever discipline, the dancer who's danced, but at what point are they like, right, the commercial success isn't happening, do I move on?
It's a really difficult question to answer. I mean, how do you quantify when somebody should, you know, leave the business? I don't think I would be qualified to answer that. I watched the Tina Turner documentary recently, and I quite liked what she said, which is she was like, I'm doing this documentary, and then I'm going to New York to open my show, and then you'll never see me again, because she had decided that was the time in her 80s. She didn't want to be seen again. But I also think it's important to know that whatever level you are, like often in our business, people always want more or think that they should be achieving more.
Yeah.
And the things that you go through as an artist, I think you always feel like, well, I wish that bit could be more respect. I wish I could here. I wish I could get there. And I think it doesn't, you'd be surprised at the level of artist who you would think has huge commercial acclaim would still be like, yeah, but I'm not doing that. Or that person doesn't like it, or I haven't, you know, appealed to that crowd. And so I think that you've got to learn to be happy with your own creative output, no matter who comes to watch it. And I'm sort of talking to myself a little bit as well here, because, you know, we'll make a show and I'll be disappointed with the rating, or I'll be upset that these people maybe didn't like it. But ultimately, you've got to be happy with what you're putting out there. Right. And if you're happy with what you're putting out there, then you should keep doing it, because you should be doing it for you. You shouldn't necessarily be doing it just because, oh, I'm not getting as well known as I wish, or I'm not getting the respect I wish, or I'm not getting the money that I wish. Like, of course, you've got to earn you've got to earn enough to live, of course. Sure. But like, at some point, there are outlets these days more than there ever have been for creative output, whether that be from YouTube to TikTok to Instagram to public service broadcasting to streamers, from your Netflix to your YouTube. There is a place for a lot of creative output, you know, small theaters, comedy clubs, improv stages, open mic nights. And I think that it's sometimes less about the chase and more about being satisfied with the work you're doing. And I think that, you know, not everybody will have the commercial success that they feel that they deserve or that they want. But ultimately, if they're happy with the output that they're doing and the work that they're doing, then sometimes you've got to go, well, at least I have that. Does that make any sense? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I think it's a terrific answer, because it's very easy to look up and think, you know, wow, this artist's Instagram working with all of these people, or this person has the perfect life, you know, if I was there. And there's no reason to think that it isn't like that. So that's why it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
You know, it's sort of like you look at actors and you go, well, you know, whoever you look up to, they will look up to somebody and go, well, why isn't that me? You know, it's like, you know, so I reckon Daniel Craig gets into bed at night and goes, yeah, sure, no, I'm James Bond, but why does Tom Cruise get more respect from Mission Impossible? And then Tom Cruise probably goes, yeah, fine, I'm doing Mission Impossible, but why isn't anybody, you know, we should be bigger than this? And, you know, I'm sure that, you know, Beyonce goes to bed going, yeah, but why is Adele's album selling more than mine? Like ultimately, and I'm sure maybe they don't, maybe they're all happy, but ultimately, I think that sometimes you have to fight your own inner turmoil of always lusting and wanting for more. And actually, you've just got to be happy with what you're doing. And so therefore, it's not for me to ever say, oh, you haven't had commercial success, you should leave the business. I think that would be an absurd thing to say. I think that if people are artists and they're talented, they should keep doing what they're doing. Doesn't mean that they should sacrifice, put their house on mortgage, or make silly mistakes, or not be able to provide for their families. I don't mean that. They should be responsible with it. But ultimately, if they're in the creative industry, hopefully they are doing it for the satisfaction of creative output, not necessarily the dollar sign at the end of the day that they may or may not get.
I think that's terrific. I think it's true. You know, particularly, you know, you worked with Tom on the Great Parachute and the other stuff, and the Beyonce at the Grammys and Adele in the Carpool. You know, so that's great. That's really great, Brent. I'll do one last question, and it's really maybe a simple answer, may not be a simple answer. I'm interested in the one quality that you feel has helped you achieve your success. I mean, I feel like I had this amazing ringside seat from, you know, I met you in '97, and then when you were PAing on Teachers and hearing the stories of In the Hands of the Gods, and, you know, now Emmys and Grammys, and, you know, I mean, just phenomenal. And what would be one thing which you do, so consciously or unconsciously, that you feel has contributed to your success?
The people I work with. I think that the foundations are, I've always been very lucky to work with great people. I work with a company of people I've grown up with, Gabe Turner and Ben Turner. I've been friends with my whole life, and they are my partners at Fullwell, as is James Corden. We've been friends since we were 18. His friendship is invaluable. He is the reason for every element of success I probably had, because he's the one who's always championed me. Leo Pullman is my other partner, who is the Turner's first cousin. So we're quite an incestuous bunch at Fullwell. So I think that backing and that family that I've had with me all the way through the career, I hope that, you know, I've stood on their shoulders, they've stood on mine. And I think the unit that we created at our company has allowed the five of us to succeed. So that, and then in the mic, that's the macro, that's the big world. That's like my foundations of like partnership. But then on every single project, you work with amazing people. You know, I look at the Friends reunion and Emma Conway and James Longman, and
Emma's great.
Emma's amazing, and they were, without them, that doesn't happen, that show. The partnership with Bright Kaufman Crane, the creators of Friends, they were invaluable throughout that. Same with the Grammys, working with everybody from Hamish Hamilton, the greatest live director in the world, to Jesse Collins and Raj Kapoor and Joseph, names that necessarily don't mean much to you maybe, but like they are brilliant people who I'm lucky to work with. And so like you're only as good as the team that you put together. So sometimes shows will live or die by the team you assemble. And so it's both in every show or success that we've had. I think it's partly it's a main part of that we've partnered with the right people, and people have joined that journey who are amazing. And maybe the failures that we've had are often because we haven't got that right, or actually that it didn't connect, or maybe, you know, that team wasn't the right team to do that show. And so I think that like sometimes, and you mentioned, you know, the Sunday Times article, or, you know, you're interviewing me for this. It's like, actually, I'm just sometimes a figurehead for those shows, and it's a group of us who make that. And without the group, it doesn't work.
So one thing someone can do is really choose their team, like choose their collaborators.
I think so, yeah. Find great people who you know, I feel like I've done well in surrounding myself with people who, like the Grammys is a great example where I surrounded myself with people who know much more than I do about every element. So like, I got in the greatest director there is to help me working out how to shoot it. I got Jesse Collins in to like introduce me to a world of music that I didn't know. I got, you know, Josie Cliff in to help me with an organization. So I think some people in life are very aware of their strengths, and I think that's great that they are. You should know what your strengths are. But I think just as important is to know where your weaknesses are, and to be open about that and honest about it, and find great people who can help you in that. And I think that's been a lot for me, and my career has been like just been lucky to work with brilliant people. And I know that's a corny thing to say, and it's like but it is genuinely true, and it comes from the base of our company at Fullwell and the family that we've created, and the people there who have been with us for 10, 15 years, some of them. You know, Carly Shackleton, she's been with me on every project practically, amazing producer, and she's been at Fullwell for must be more than 10 years now, must be nearly 15 years. So like, you know, it's important that you are lucky enough to get the right people to work with you as partners, and never, you know, never be too into your own importance.
I love it. I think it's brilliant, and people can do a lot with that, and I'm inspired. And Ben, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.